In the summer of 2024, I took my family on an almost 4-month-long vacation traveling around Norway. We had some relaxing days in the woods amongst the wildlife, as well as visiting some nice places and cities. Somewhere along this trip I had the idea to make a guitar, so I started to scribble down my ideas and ended up making this sketch on my tablet using nothing but my fingers and a lot of patience. I ended up mostly finishing the 3D model in Fusion from the office I had in the car. When I got home, one of the first things I did was to purchase this beautiful slab of birch from the local hardware store. I then cut it into pieces and glued it up with some wood glue. When the gluing was done, I clamped it together as best as I could. During the trip I had a lot of time to think about how I could improve my workshop setup. One of the things I came up with was this quick way of getting the vacuum in and out of the CNC. While I waited for the glue to dry, I also made these start and stop buttons for the CNC. I molded them in Fusion and 3D printed it. When the glue was done, I had to make some cuts so that the whole piece had some straight corners to use as reference. I had never done such a project before, and I was trying my best to solve all the problems before they became a reality. One of the bigger challenges I thought about was the referencing I had to do, to make sure that the cuts on both sides of the piece of wood were lining up in the end. My CNC is an older Instructables X-Carve. There have been multiple owners of this one, and I take absolutely no blame in how the spillboard is looking. The first CNC operation was to flatten the surface. Here you can see that it is cutting a little bit more on the left side than on the right, meaning that the wood surfaces were not actually parallel from the store. I also used the CNC to make sure that my reference corner was a perfect 90 degrees. After we got home from the trip, I bought an industrial Bosch vacuum and moved the CNC to this new location in my workshop. Here I got this super duper clever idea to hang the vacuum hose in a flexible rope from the ceiling. Here, if you look closely, you can see the problem I have with this brush setup. This is where the real cutting begins. While we were still on the trip, I bought a guitar. I wanted black details on my guitar, and I found this one Ibanez which had everything I wanted, and unfortunately a Floyd Rose. It felt like a good idea and a fun challenge at the time. In this clip I had started to carve out the details on the backside of the guitar, where the mechanism and the springs for the rows are going. The next step was to cut the profile of the backside of the guitar. Instead of doing a lot of passes, I decided to make this stair pattern and instead let the CNC go over with a so-called parallel pass. And here you can see how smooth the surface became straight out of the parallel cut operation. Now I had to turn the whole thing around so that I could machine the front side as well. The biggest challenge with this is to get the reference correct, the 0.0.0 if you want. This is to make sure that the milling bit starts its operation from the right place. This was one of the things I was scared of messing up, and I used a whole lot of time on this. Here I'm drilling holes around the contour of the guitar, so that I can quickly see if I were successful in aligning the piece in the end. I was doing the outside silhouette first for this reason. Here I am checking, double checking, and even going as far as going for a triple check to see if the alignment is correct. Since the origin points were now on the right side of the guitar, I decided to machine some of the details on the left side first. If that was a success, I could know for certain that the piece was in the right spot and had the right angle. And believe it or not, it was almost at the right angle. Here you can see that I was a small millimeter off. If I were to make a guitar again, I would use more time and my newfound wisdom to get the alignment better. I'm again using the rough stair method I used on the other side. On this side there will be a lot of details, and these passes include parts of these details already. Here you can already see some of them that are starting to become visible. The first drill bit I used was 3.175mm in diameter. I believe you can also call this 1/8 of an inch. To get the finer details, I changed over to a 1.4mm bit that you can see in this clip. The method I used turned out to be a big pain. The details were far from good enough straight from the mill, and I had to manually sand and carve them later by hand. This took a crazy amount of time and the results were not good enough in my opinion. This is after the final milling, and as you can see, the details down in the grooves are still a bit rough. Believe it or not, this is the first time I am holding the guitar. It was a joyous moment. And here you can also see that during the parallel cutting on the back side of the guitar there was a problem. The power went out and I did not set the set height correctly. Some of the details had to be fine-tuned as I went along. These holes needed to be some millimeters wider. Some places even needed more glue. The one fun and also not so fun part about wood is that it's not perfect all the time. I tried my very best to carve the details by hand. This took way too long and did not give the results I was hoping for. There were some places the CNC naturally could not get into, so I mounted the CNC bit on my Dremel and got to work. Lube is for the weak. Here I made another funny mistake. These holes are for the adjustment screws for the Floyd Rose. They were originally pointing a bit downwards and I thought to myself that this was because it was easier to install them like that. I wanted to one-up Ibanez by doing it the very correct way. Perfectly horizontally. It turns out it is very hard to adjust screws when you need a bendable tool just to get to them. I'm very sorry about this. When I made some more progress, I found out that the jack from the old guitar was too fat to install into this one. So I had to pivot my strategy and get one that is installed on the front of the guitar instead. I got this bad boy and I went to town with my Dremel. Because the switcher was too high to be installed in the place I originally had it, I had to move it closer to the center, where the guitar is more massive. I used the CNC to get the holes perfectly aligned, and instead of using 5 minutes to whip up some G-code and let the machine do it in 3 minutes, I chose to spend around 30 minutes of doing it manually instead. And now it's time for the color. I was not sure which one I wanted, so I bought 3 different colors from Rubio Monocoat. This grey one I did not like, and the cherry one here was beautiful. But in the end I chose the charcoal color. This one. I had to Google how one is supposed to apply Rubio Monocoat, but the gist of it is that you apply 1 good coat and you wipe away the excess and you're done. Are you ready to see the final result? I have had a number of soldering irons over the time, some expensive, some cheap, but the one iron I often return to is the gas-powered one. I started this from cold and just see how fast it heats up. Also, in the background you can see how I mounted the switch in the end. I had to carve out a pocket with the Dremel and the CNC bit. And now most of the electronics are mounted. This is the look of a proud father. When looking at the guitar up close you can see that the details are indeed not perfect. I would argue that this fits the theme of this guitar very well, but that could also be something I just need to say to myself. Oh wow, this is embarrassing. My whammy is usually not this excited. To make the secondary electronics cover, I decided to go for some acrylics. I machined it on the CNC. And to get something that resembles a wood grain, I sanded it in one direction. I then put on one coat of Rubio monocoat, so that the grains, as I call them, and the final color would be a little bit different. Before putting on the final color, I made the mounting holes. I had absolutely no idea that it would work this well. And in the end, will it metal? Turns out it's hard to play the guitar outside in the winter, so I made another attempt inside.